Yesterday marked the first day of Advent. Each Sunday in Advent, as we read the lectionary selections, the readings tell a particular story with a specific theme on each of the 4 Sundays. These themes are consistent throughout the 3-year lectionary cycle, except that the scripture readings themselves are different each year. This year happens to be year C, or the 3rd year in the lectionary cycle. The gospel readings throughout this year will come predominantly, though not exclusively, from the Gospel according to Luke, not coincidentally, the 3rd gospel in the New Testament. What I plan to do from now until Christmas is walk us through the readings for each Sunday of Advent, but from the other 2 years. On Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I'll read in order the Old Testament, Epistle, and Gospel reading for year A, and on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I'll be reading the same selections from year B. By the time we reach Christmas Day, assuming you worship with us on Sunday or worship in a church that follows the 3-year lectionary cycle, you will have heard all of the Advent readings for each of the 4 Sundays throughout Advent. I hope this journey serves to enrich your understanding of Advent and the dynamics of the lectionary readings throughout this important season of the church year. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas. The Old Testament reading for the first Sunday of Advent in year A is from the prophet Isaiah. It contains very familiar words. The word that Isaiah, son of Amoz, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. In the days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be raised above the hills. All nations shall stream to it. Many peoples shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth instruction, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations, and shall arbitrate for many peoples. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. O house of Jacob, come, let us walk in the light of the Lord. These are the very first words of Scripture we read and hear in the 3-year lectionary cycle. The first reading on the first Sunday of the first year in the liturgical calendar. You can see right away that the focus is on the future. And though this is not considered apocalyptic literature, it does share with apocalyptic literature a vision of the future. In this case, the future is of a Judah restored to its original glory and of a Jerusalem that becomes, in a very real sense, the center of the world. Notice that this passage says nothing of the Messiah or of the Messiah's birth. That's very curious, isn't it? Especially as it is one of the texts tradition has chosen for inclusion among the Advent texts. So what gives? Well, in a very real sense, Jerusalem, and with it Mount Zion, become symbols for the Messiah. How? Jerusalem is lifted up as the highest of all mountains, standing in a place of predominance in the world. This is clearly not a geographic vision, but a symbolic one. Jerusalem takes its place as the very location of God's throne. That may not mean much to us, but in ancient times, people would come to the king for arbitration to settle differences that had arisen among their neighbors. In Isaiah's vision, this is what Jerusalem becomes for all the world. It becomes the place to which all peoples and all nations come to settle their differences. Only now, as an Advent text, instead of a place, a person. The coming Messiah, Jesus Christ, becomes the person finally to whom all nations and peoples turn, knowing that, at long last, differences will be settled, and all people will be able to dwell in peace. Hence, those familiar words, they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. For no longer will they be instruments of war, and no longer will instruments of war be required. This is the substance of our hope during Advent. Not an otherworld vision, but a vision of this world transformed at long last into God's peaceable kingdom. Tomorrow, Paul reminds the church in Rome that now is the time to awake from sleep and prepare for the coming of the Messiah. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.